Hello, my beautiful YouTube friends. My name is Shakima, if you don't already know. And today is our weekly Tools for Using Tools Tuesdays segment. And the purpose of this segment is basically just to sort of share some gems, share some insight, share some knowledge, get conversation popping, basically. And you guys can sort of, be interactive and, sort of comment on things that you agree with, things that you may have some differences with. And we can sort of take it from there just to sort of create, I guess, an open dialect for everyone to be able to give their opinions on a few, I guess, political and non political contexts as far as the spirituality game, because people who are hashtag woke are having difficulties being able to sort of convey some of their information. And I guess this is basically a platform for us to be able to just kind of chop it up a little bit. Okay, so if you guys are interested in sort of staying tuned for the weekly Tools for Using Tools Tuesday segments, then definitely be sure to, join the discussion, comment, like, share, subscribe, and tune in for more. Okay, so just to sort of go straight into it, today's segment is all about religion versus spirituality. And I don't going straight into this, guys. I don't want to be deceptive with the title, like clickbait, as they say. To me personally, there is no difference between religion and spirituality. Spirituality is religion. Your religion is basically the tools that you utilize to practice your spiritual evolution. So, for some people, they find it easier to be able to connect to their inner being through something like Christianity. For other people, they find it easier to connect to their inner being through something like through a practice, if you will, like Islam. Some people do Wiccan, some people do Buddhism. So we all have all these different tools that we can utilize to tap into our fullest potential. And that is essentially, what spirit is. Spirit is uncapped potential of creation. And sometimes why I personally sort of take a little bit and a bit of everything is because I don't want to limit myself to just one perspective or one viewpoint. I personally love spirit in all its forms, and I think that each of the different concepts sort of gives us an opportunity to connect with spirit at different levels and layers of ourselves as individuals. And I think also each of these different, I guess, because what it comes down to as well is that these religions, if you will, kind of comes along with some sort of cultural differences. Because I'll put it to you like this. uh, Going to a quote unquote black church, in comparison to going to a Caucasian church, you would probably find a difference in terms of the entire atmosphere, basically. As they say. And for me personally, I just want to also address this, like, spirit comes in all different spectrums. I actually don't really believe in the whole black and white sort of context, but I'll break that down in a completely different video. To me, we are all euromelanated beings. Well, the darker shade or the brown shades of melanin will be what we considered black, and the well, I can understand not being drawn to anything specifically, because I feel as though, sometimes society wants to sort of contain us into these little boxes, and we have to sort of pick and choose. People say to me all the time, well, what's your favorite? I don't have a favorite. I don't have a favorite of anything. Don't ever ask me for a favorite anything, because to me, when I sort of limit myself to the quote unquote context of a favorite, I am closing myself off from other potentials, other opportunities. And that's where things get a little bit, I don't want to say confusing, because, I'm very clear, but my spirit then becomes discontent, because I'm just like, that's not who I really am. I literally just like to live in abundance. I like to sort of live in an uncapped potential of things. And I really just feel as though, for a lot of people, because I get this all the time whenever I'm sort of, I do guided meditations. And one of the things that I utilize to sort of allow for people to go deeper is to be able to utilize the different religious practices to give that crowd of people an opportunity to go into the different layers of themselves. I'll put it to you like this, for instance, right? Islam, it teaches about sort of praying 5 times a day, and the way that Muslims, I took my shahada 10 years ago, but the way that Muslims sort of pray, we pray sort of touching our third eye to the floor, essentially our prayer mat. What a lot of people don't realize, in the grand scheme of things, if you think about it, that is literally us taking a time to reattune our third eye, at least up to 5 times a day. And this is actually in alignment with the solar movements throughout the day, because when you're sort of with Islamic prayers, you kind of do it depending on where the sun is. So all 5 of the different prayers are in alignment with the movement of Amen. Okay, and with that, I don't think we realize as such, because I'm sure if I was to break that down to some Muslims out there, it might just kind of get a little bit confusing. But even for people that sort of consider themselves to be Muslim, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was actually an empath. And I don't think that people really sort of take the time to understand what that means at its core. And I actually believe that we're all empaths. Some people are more attuned than others, depending on, I guess, how much and how often they meditate, where they sort of travel to during their process of meditation. And I like to call it meditation because it's sort of clearing away any of the world's noise, fog in your mind. And those are pretty much some of the things that will happen when we sort of utilize religion to be able to assist us in our spiritual evolution. And I definitely believe that that is the purpose of religion. And for the most part, for some people that choose one or the other, I do think that it can either make or break that person's spirit, because some religions of today, there's a lot of political sort of backlash that kind of comes with it. You kind of are confined to these very strict and specific rules. And again, it depends on your teacher for the religion. And I do want to sort of make that clear, because sometimes a lot of people struggle with religion in itself because their teacher is, it's almost like they are misguided, and the individual that's sort of looking to this shepherd as a sheep kind of feels their own misguidedness. What I will say, I actually do have, so I'm gonna sort of present a link in the description box. I do have a meditation playlist on my other channel, but also I actually do guided meditations via my Facebook page, L.I.F.E Warrior Wisdom, on Sundays to kind of prepare us for the work week ahead. And what I tend to do with that is I give us an opportunity to sort of firstly get an understanding of the planetary alignment for the week ahead, so that we can have more of an understanding of the kind of energies that our spirits are going to be, how can I put it, combating throughout the work week ahead. And I also then guide us within, because sometimes why people, I find when I do my guided meditations, why people have difficulty going within, it's because they are having to go through the barriers of the shadows that have been casted over them. Again, to go to scripture, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. So our egos, those shadows, are other people's perspectives, clouded over our own judgment of self. And because of that, as we go in to seek self, we find it difficult to actually go directly to self. So yeah. No, honestly, you'd be surprised. Obviously, we come in as sponges, and then everybody has these perspectives of what we should be, who we should become. The whole world kind of, it's almost like they mold us into their version of us, and we forget ourselves in the process. So if you're ever interested, I'll also sort of pop the link of that in the description box, where you can sort of get access to the room, if you will. And I do those every Sunday evening, like I say, to prepare for the work week ahead, because whilst we're okay maybe on a weekend when we're just sort of chopping it up with our friends, family, just being our best selves, living our best lives, by the time we find ourselves back into a work environment where we have to interact with other people's energies, we can sometimes find ourselves acting out of character, especially depending on the planetary alignments for the week ahead, because we may be sort of forced to deal with certain tests. And that's the entire point of those meditation sessions. It's almost to prep us for the tests that are about to come, so that we can sort of, I guess, get to that place of becoming conscious, staying woke, as they say, during the process of, I guess, spirit trying to just assist us in our evolution. Yeah, no, it does. I'm going to say this. It helps in the sense where sometimes we know, it's almost like we know we're being tested in certain situations, but our ego just wants to take a moment to revel in that like experience anyways. And I think what happens in those situations where we're sort of living in a conscious state of being, it's easier for us to sort of take our ego to the side and have a bit of a sidebar and just sort of, outline, look, this is what I'm trying to do, this is why. Because I don't think we realize as well, we are one human vessel, we're one avatar. No, absolutely. But with us being the one avatar, there's so many different fragmented, I guess, versions of us, from being a child all the way up to being an adult. And sometimes we don't realize that there's, this is why we sort of struggle sometimes with past sort of childhood traumas, because we don't take the time to nurse those wounds. We don't take the time to actually give that child the opportunity to, I guess, grow and evolve with us. Our avatar just gets older, and we find ourselves creating from self-destructive patterns because of that. And I think one of the things that, again, going back to the whole point and concepts of this, one of the things that religion does is give us an opportunity to utilize our tools. Religions are tools, guys. Like, if we can sort of say, sometimes when I'm going through something, when I'm going through hardship, or if I'm having difficulty sort of going through forgiveness, let's say, what I do, I pray on it. I pray and ask for God, Allah, whoever you believe in, whatever it is that you believe in, the universe. I ask spirit to just guide me into the right path that is going to allow for me to be able to relieve myself of the burden of this cross I am carrying on my heart, that is unforgiveness. Because to not be able to forgive means that we are questioning what has been decreed by the divine. And we can question it all day, makes no difference. Doing stuff and utilizing tools like forgiveness, which is what Prophet Isa, if you believe in Islam versus Christianity, about the whole Jesus Christ story, Prophet Isa would be the man that kind of tapped into his Christ consciousness state of being, if you sort of look at it from an Islamic perspective and merge the two as far as Islam and Christianity. So it's really a case of just being able to utilize those little tools to be able to assist you in your evolution. And the greatest thing about it is we have several books, guys. We have like so many books, as far as there's so many versions of the Bible. Yes, there is the translations of the Quran. Yes, and outside of this, there's the Torah. There's so many other great books, like amazing books that can really sort of help us with our own personal development. And these people, these ancestors, because that's what they are the people of the land before our time, and they created life, and it kind of continued through us, and we're now sort of effectively living at the aftermath, I guess, of some of the past actions, because we're basically sort of triggered beings from those actions. Cause and effect is simply the law of karma. And they kind of left us a good little insight of some gems that we can utilize, and we have these as religious scriptures and books. And if we took more time, and I'm going to say this, I know that the language used, because it's from a different era, it's sometimes difficult for us to really sort of get an understanding, an understanding of what these things are saying, because it almost sounds cryptic when you sort of read it and sort of try to sort of I guess get your own analogy of it going and seeing how it actually correlates with your life. What I do when I'm having difficulty sort of relating to a scripture, again, I stop and I sort of ask spirit to take me away from what I think I know by perceiving literally the words on the page, and allow for me to see what I already know within the core of my being. So basically interpret it from my heart space, which is where I'm really having my experience, whereas my mind is actually only perceiving my experience once my heart is living it out. And essentially that's really what's happening for us in general. So Not to completely stray off topic, guys, but I say all that to say that, don't forget that religion is here to assist us, is here as a tool. And the difference between spirituality and religion is there is no difference. It is one in the same. There are just very different versions of the same thing, giving us an opportunity to be able to decide what we are most comfortable with. What frequency do we sort of resonate with? What vibration do we identify with most? And by being able to utilize that particular religion to assist us in our personal evolution, that is where we'll be able to really actually start making leaps and bounds in our own personal growth. Shadow working is one of the amazing ways to really be able to transcend some of your fear blocks. And again, like I said to you initially, Champagne, I think, some of the difficulties that you may be having sort of going within to find self is a lot of those shadows that have been casted over your identity, your reflection of self. And in those cases, it makes it a little bit more difficult. And what I would personally sort of recommend in terms of that, again, just going through, a religious concept with it, praying on it, and asking for your spirit to give you an opportunity to really sort of reveal itself to you. Because when we're sort of struggling with meditation, like I call it meditation because it's really a case of connecting to that inner self. Like I said, when we're struggling with that, it's a case of some levels of detachment from the authentic version of self. So there may be certain things that aren't necessarily being made clear because there may be some levels of I don't want to say ignorance, because to be ignorant of something, basically, just to break that down, is to not be in acknowledgement of. So there might be certain aspects of your journey that you're not acknowledging, which makes it difficult for you to be able to see beyond those shadows. But what I will say, definitely sort of tune in. I'm going to get as much info as I can in the description box about, some of the different meditations that I find to be useful for myself. And the one thing that I would say when meditating, try not to think. That is the main thing. The one thing that I would, because whenever I guide anyone through meditation, the main thing that I kind of focus on is advising them to focus on their breathing, because breathing oxygenates the mind and it kind of creates that barrier. So whilst you're focusing on your breathing, you're actually creating time gaps between each thought. And the more you focus on your breathing, the deeper you focus on your breathing, the more expansive the gap becomes. Okay, so with that, it kind of helps you to be able to see more and more of yourself come to surface, because then you're not busy sort of having all these thoughts during the process of your alone time, because that's what meditation is, alone time. Also, I'm going to say this, there's so many different ways to meditate. You can literally sort of find yourself. What I tend to do sometimes is to just leave the tap running and allow for my mind to drift. Because when we're meditating, sometimes essentially what's happening is that our consciousness is leaving our vessel. It's leaving our vessel and traveling into different dimensional states of being. So whilst our vessel in the present moment, or I don't want to say stuck, but whilst it's anchored in the present moment, we are off drifting into other dimensions of thoughts, other realities, other possibilities, other potentials of our current experience. So those are some of the ways in which you're already meditating. I'm sure you do that. It's called daydreaming, if you will. Okay. And those are some of the little things that we do in essence. And we don't realize actually that those are some of the things that we're doing. And we create more barriers when we're trying to do it on a conscious level, because it's so easy for us to do it subconsciously, because we're already designed to do these things. It's just a case of, I guess, figuring out how to use the avatar. Because I say to people all the time, this human thing is hard. Okay, it is not easy at all, because you get one avatar and there's so many sort of like, every single form of technology has been designed based on us as the human avatar. I have a camera in front of me right now that was designed based on the concept of our eyes. Our eyes are like lenses. We can tune in and out. Some people, when their lenses becomes, I don't want to say corrupted, but when their lenses become mispixelated, so they're having difficulties picking up on the different pixels because we're sort of living in a matrix ethereal, if you will. And in the physical realm, it's literally every single pixel, that billions of pixels, that creates this reality or illusion of reality, if you ask me. And if we just kind of come to more of an understanding of how to work the avatar, honestly, things become a little bit easier. It's not smooth sailing. I'm not going to sort of say that, because everybody knows as you go in your spiritual awakening, things just get even more difficult. And spirit tests you even more, and spirit wants you to show up even more and go deeper into your potential. You know, they say that we only use sort of 10% of our brain, if you will. Our brain is a computer. You know, this is, again, they designed these things based on us. They had to really first study us. And I say they because you know who I'm speaking about. Society, the government, whatever. The leaders of the non-free world, if you will. And they sort of studied us to be able to get more of an understanding of how to be able to design these things. And I think if we kind of had more of an understanding of what we are at the core of ourselves, at the core of our being, it would make it easier for us to actually navigate through the process. And then we can actually see the effects of utilizing the different religions, because that's what they're there for. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he referred to himself as an empath. Jesus, again, Prophet Isa, because that's how I sort of believe it to be, the man that tapped into his Christ-like state of consciousness, which means that he knew who he was. I am that I am. He knew that he was, an unlimited being, sort of living in abundance, creating restrictions for himself. And that's why he was able to create miracles, because he was able to, remove himself from the distortion of the fact that there are limitations within this 3D realm. You know, he just kind of removed that programming from his mind and reprogrammed himself to the understanding of his potential at the core of its being. And I guess in that sort of era of things, people called themselves at those times, because even if you sort of read the Bible, it speaks about the pharaohs and how the pharaohs used to call the witches and the witch doctors, and that's how they refer to themselves at that time, because that was the way. And again, just to clarify this word, because I know there's a lot of negative connotations on the word for people, witches are people that are deeply attuned to the earth. It is nature. Magic in itself is a understanding of nature. Magic is the 3 to 4 step process of evolution. It's the 3 to 4 step process of manifestation. You have a thought, you connect that thought to an intention, you then create an action. Magic, okay? You have manifested something. So that's what that is. But again, because we have been conditioned, we have been doctrined to, be against ourselves. We have been conditioned to give our power away. We have been conditioned to become muggles, for lack of a better way of putting it. And again, just to explain that word from my understanding, it's just people that have a tendency to give their power away to a source outside of themselves, not realizing that they have the ability and capacity to create for themselves. Okay? A lot of us, we kind of blame the system for all of these different things, but the system is in power because clearly majority of us are giving our power to this system. Okay, and it's going to continue to be that way until more and more and more of us wake up to the true potential of ourselves and decide to again remove those programmings from our mind space and actually live in the full essence of our being. And again, this is what religion is here to do. It is here to assist us. I will tell you, I was, brought up as a Christian all my life. And when I was 18, when I was 17, Spirit said to me, "You're an empath." I was like, I don't know what that means. You're going to have to, sort of walk the path with me along with this. A year later, within a year later, I was actually, I reverted, I should say, to Islam, because again, that is the first depiction and connotation of the word empath. Because Prophet Muhammad was an empath. And, after that, Spirit then led me down to Buddhism, because I found myself probably about 4 years ago now sort of getting into meditation, because I was just finding it really difficult where everybody's thoughts were becoming noise, traffic in my mind. And they don't pay bills for my mind space. Okay, they're not paying rent to occupy my time. And my mind space is where I go to create my entire experience. So if they are going to occupy my space, it requires, by law of, exchange in the universe, it requires me being able to receive something for that which has been taken from me, i.e. my energy, my mental capacity. So when I decided to sort of, start to learn how to meditate and just kind of quiet the noise in my mind, one of the things, because I'll tell you this, like growing up, the first thing I used to do in the mornings anyways before I wake up is say a prayer to sort of thank God for, waking me up again for another day, an amazing day in paradise. And I sit for like 10-15 minutes just to meditate being sort of consider what I'm going to be doing for the day, consider what spirit wants to utilize me as a vessel to do for the day. And I then fall into alignment with that by navigating through the process consciously, now being aware that, okay, this is what spirit wants me to do, this is how I'm going to be able to navigate through the process and make sure that I'm in alignment with the intention of spirit for myself for the day, because spirit always has our best intention at heart first and foremost. But once I was able to sort of get into meditation, it actually allowed for me to open my third eye. And this, I'm going to say this, yes, I guess there were intentions to be able to trigger the awakening and activation of my third eye, but I didn't understand exactly how this was going to come about. And when I did sort of, again, I'm probably going to do this in another segment as far as story time, when I did trigger the activation of my third eye, it actually was poking out of my forehead. It was poking out of my forehead. And I remember, I remember sort of looking at myself in the mirror, saying to myself, like, whoa, what the hell is that? But I saw the drastic transition in myself within a matter of weeks after that. And I remember having to sit down with my partner not too long after that moment and being like, hey, after about 5, 6, maybe, I think it was about 7 years of being in a relationship at that point, look, the lady that you fell in love with, she's dead. She's gone. I'm here now. And you're going to have to teach me how to love you. You're going to have to teach me how to be able to be patient with you, because I am a more evolved being. So my tolerance levels are not the same as maybe her tolerance was before, because you are dealing with somebody that was projecting the experience of you guys from a broken place within herself, whereas I'm coming into the place a little bit more aware, a little bit more conscious, and a little bit more knowing of my full potential, unbroken, unwounded, how can I put it, untainted, basically. Okay, and again, these are some of the things that religion can do for us, guys. Like, it can literally, like, when we think that we are woke, because I think that's one of the things that I've learned through this process, thinking that you're woke and actually sort of being woke. There's so many different levels to this woke game, guys. And it really is a case of how deep are you prepared to go? How much time do you have to give spirit? Because when spirit took me to places and took me down the rabbit hole, I never once said, yo, this is too much for me. I actually said, I don't understand, but help me. Okay, I don't understand the purpose of this, but please, do not forsake me in this moment. Just continue to be patient with me and allow for me to get an understanding. I am only an ego vessel, and my ego can only perceive bits at a time. I don't have, uncapped vision like you do as spirit. That's just not what I'm privy to. I'm simply a vessel that has only a perspective of my personal experience to sort of live up to or live from. So again, because I didn't actually want to make this too long, but I know I go on a rant, so it was inevitable, guys. But I just wanted to sort of stop in to kind of, because I see it all the time where it's almost like spiritual people feel as though they have to shy away from religion, and religious people are like, spirituality is wrong. I'm like, well, what the hell are you religious with? How does that make sense? Give you guys an example. I make candles, okay? And I sort of made a love candle for one of my clients, and I remember, she was like, yeah, I keep feeling like these spirits, and they keep coming to sort of, interact with me, and they keep coming to talk to me or whatever, and I keep running, and I'm like, well, hell, what are we doing this for? Like, you're saying that you're a spiritual being, but like, what purpose does it serve you to say that you are spiritual? And then when spirits come to interact with you, and let's clarify this spirit sort of context, okay? Spirits are vessels of creation that do not reside in a physical vessel, okay? Like, and I'm hoping that that resonates with so many people, so that can dispel whatever sort of condition or programming they had about spirits in their minds on that, because I can see you guys eating it up. But that is the truth. These are literally fractals of the divine itself, just as we are, like living beings, but they are non-physical fractals of the divine, you know. For me personally, I see them in physical form, to be fair, because I kind of, again, sort of attuned myself. And this is what happens, guys, if you utilize religion. Oh my God, you become more and more powerful. That's what religion is there for, to really, I'm sorry, I'm getting passionate about this, guys. Honestly, like, religion is there to make you powerful. If only you know how to utilize it, if only you know how to kind of not allow for yourself to be placed in a box, if only you know how to not limit yourself within the box or confinement of other people's perspective of the exact same religion. Because I'm sure there's certain things that I touched in this space where, you know, you may have been sort of dealing with the same religion and had no understanding of some of the things that I was just sort of, you know, speaking on, or you may have an understanding and I allowed for you to expand on that, you know, perspective. Like, it is literally all about your ego kind of getting, because the ego is very fixed. It's like a very fixed perspective. That's why it's kind of called an ego, because it's like this. It's like tunnel vision. It doesn't want to see anything else but what it's in that moment. And what happens is that when we're able to kind of give ourselves, so what happens is that spirit trickles in something else from, you know, another dimension, another frequency, to the one that we're currently fixated on. It sort of drops a new little ingredient, okay, which is the ingredient of our evolution. And then that shifts our focus. It shifts our ego into now broadening itself to sort of seeing both, if not all, of the perspectives at once. Okay, so don't let our egos misguide us, guys, because as they say in the good book, the devil is a liar. And absolutely, like, shaitan will lie. And the way that the devil lies to us is in our mind space, because our ego will tell us lies, guys. And that's where, you know, this is where, like, shadows, this is where entities, and again, when we're talking about entities, we need to sort of have an understanding of what the word means, you know. Entities are anything that is outside of ourselves infiltrating our vessel, because we are an entity ourselves and we actually infiltrate other people's vessels. This is how we get them to do stuff for us. This is how we get them to manifest to our desires and take away their rights sometimes to manifest as they really intend, casting our shadows over their space of creation. And if we are, you know, mindful, if we are tactful in the way that we are, you know, creating with other people, because we all have a right to co-create with the creator. That's why we're all created. That is the purpose of each and every single fractal that is here, you know, fighting for their process of evolution. But if we can sort of stop and take a moment to just sort of see when spirit is calling us to purpose, that's what happens. We can utilize religion to assist us in being called to purpose, because for the most part, we're already living in purpose every single day, simply because the subconscious mind actually governs and dictates 90% of what you do throughout the day. 95% actually of what you do throughout the day. There's only 5% of your day that your ego or your conscious mind is aware of, and that is simply because you only become aware as and when the things happen. You don't know that you're walking until you realize that you're walking, unless you give it a conscious thought. Okay? What I would say is, because the subconscious is already creating, because spirit already occupies the vessel, it's really a case of falling into alignment with spirit, into alignment with what is already happening, with all that already is. And I think it's really just a case of making sure that you are prepared to walk the entire process, okay, and be open as everything kind of unfolds for you, not to you. Okay. I say all that to say, look, religion is here to give you an opportunity to become the very best versions of yourselves. The truth is, there is no difference between religion and spirituality. It is all one in the same. Okay? And I'm going to love you guys and leave you guys with that, because I really didn't actually mean to go into this for 35 minutes of a rant. But I just wanted to, give you guys as much information as possible and just kind of, just drop a few little gems in there so that somebody today in this space, whenever they get to sort of see this, can take something away and utilize it on their journey and remember it when they get to, I'm going to say this, we never really get to where we're trying to get to, which is why we kind of reincarnate over and over and over again. And I'm going to try not to make this too long because I have a tendency to go back off on a tangent and this may not end. But I would say, like, if we just understand that this particular life it serves a purpose in the grand scheme of our evolution, and as long as we are safe in knowing that at every single moment of the day, even when it feels like things are going wrong, guess what? It's going right, because that's exactly what spirit intended to happen in that moment. Yes, we have free will, which is an illusion. If I'm completely honest with you, it's actually governed will because of the law of karma, cause and effect. You do something, and every single decision that you make has a reaction. Every action has a reaction, guys. So I don't consider it to be free willed. Okay, it's governed will. And I think even that programming of thinking that we are ever free to do as we desire, that's the ego's need for instant gratification. The ego wants to feel as though it is in control. It is not. Spirit is in control literally 24/7. We are just privy to what spirit does as and when we get an opportunity to be conscious of some stuff. Okay, guys? So I'm going to leave it all there. I just wish you guys the best of luck with it. I hope that we can sort of finally get to a place where we're not feeling the need to choose between one or the other. Because I even sort of see this with, I think, again, I'm going to try to make this short. Doreen Virtue, she kind of makes, she makes cards, right? And I remember when she reverted back to Christianity, it was like some big hoo-ha. And I'm like, well, this only means that spirit is going to make her better in that context, because she's going to tap back into religion to make the experience of spirituality for so many so much better. Like, it's not a bad thing. We never have to, don't let anybody sort of give you the impression that you have to choose between being spiritual and being religious, because if you close yourself off to either one of those, then you are basically self-sabotaging your evolution process on a subconscious level, because you're sort of creating from a program perspective that is all about limitations, and we ain't got none of those except the ones that we create for ourselves. Okay, so I'm gonna try and wrap it up here and like stop. But do you know what it is, guys? I can literally, I can feel my ears, both my ears burning, so I can feel that my guides are here and they're literally just trying to like use me as a vessel and like put so much info out, and spirit's trying to like, get so much information out through me in this moment. So I'm sorry if I went off on a tangent. I just really am passionate about this particular topic, and there may be like little things from this discussion that I will sort of touch in on, like on a separate note, bit by bit, because there's so much, I guess, that I put out in the context. I'm definitely going to be going deeper. I'm going to do a whole tools for using tools on the human avatar and breaking down the physical anatomy and the spiritual anatomy of our avatar, because they're two completely different things, but both has to be in unison for us to be effective at navigating through our evolution. Okay, I'm just gonna breathe for a minute. I'm gonna leave it there. I know I've said it a million times, but I love you guys. I'm sending you guys nothing but love, light, and positive intentions for the evolution process. And honestly, my fellow life warriors living in full evolution warriors, just know that you signed up for this, and anything that shows up as an obstacle is simply asking you to tap into your unlimited potential of your core, of your being. Okay, I'm going to leave it there with you guys. Ashe, what will be, will be. Mwah. Until next time.